The alarm bells were already ringing when I jumped from the third-floor window, and I remember thinking, quite clearly, that a princess who breaks her leg, escaping her own home, deserves whatever punishment comes next. I did not break my leg. I landed hard on the garden hedge, rolled twice, and kept running before the guards even reached the window I had climbed through. Behind me, torches were lighting up one by one across the palace wall, and I could hear Captain Callum shouting my name across the courtyard like it was a battle order. In a way, I suppose it was. To him, losing me would mean losing his position, maybe his head, in a kingdom where dragons still remembered older, harsher customs. I did not stop to feel sorry for him. I kept running, my borrowed coat flapping around my knees, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. Somewhere behind me, wings unfolded, not mine. The warhawks the guards used for night patrol, trained to spot a runaway heir from the sky. I ducked under the low bridge by the old fish market and pressed myself into the shadows, breathing so hard I was sure the whole street could hear me. The hawk screeched somewhere above, circled once, and moved on toward the eastern gate. I let out a breath I did not know I was holding. My name is Elizabeth Corvain IX, heir to the obsidian wing throne, and I had just risked everything to do something that sounded, on paper, almost embarrassingly small. I wanted to learn how to fish. You have to understand what my life looked like before that night, to understand why something so simple felt worth so much danger. Everyone around me treated me like a weapon waiting to go off. My scales, still soft and half-formed under my human seeming, were worth more coin than most people in this city would see in 10 lifetimes. My blood was rumored to cure sicknesses it did not actually cure. My breath, when it finally came in fully, was considered a matter of kingdom security, discussed in closed rooms by men who had never once asked what I wanted for myself. I had heard 2 dock workers talking a week earlier, laughing about an old man named Edwin, who could pull a fish out of still water with nothing but patience and a stubborn heart. Something in my chest went quiet, and certain the moment I heard it. I did not want the fish. I wanted the ordinary of it. I wanted, just once, to do something nobody had planned for me. So I left a note on my desk, the ink still wet when I climbed out the window. It said I had gone to learn something useless, and that I would be back before supper, and that they should not bother sending the guards, because fear has a smell, and it frightens fish. I do not think Captain Callum found that funny. I reached the harbor, just as the last torch behind me faded into the fog rolling off the water. My legs ached from running, my lungs burned, but for the first time in longer than I could remember, nobody was watching me. Nobody needed anything from me. I was just a girl in a coat too big for her, standing on wet wooden planks that creaked under her boots. I found him at the end of a crooked dock, sitting on an overturned crate with a thermos so old the paint had worn off the handle. He did not look up right away. When he finally did, he studied me for a long moment through wire glasses, taking in my torn coat, my wild hair, the faint shimmer under my fingernails that I had forgotten to hide in my hurry. I asked him, too formally, too much like a princess, and not enough like a girl, if he would teach me the art of angling. He raised one eyebrow and said, I could either stand there being fancy at his fish, or sit down and be quiet about it. I sat down. He did not ask my name. He did not ask why a strange child had appeared on his dock in the middle of the night, with guards clearly searching the streets behind her. He simply handed me a fishing rod that had been broken and taped back together more than once, and told me the first true thing anyone had said to me in weeks. He said patience was not about waiting quietly. It was about waiting without needing the waiting to hurry up. There was a difference, he said, and most people never learned it. I did not understand that yet. Dragons are not built for waiting. We are built for watching from a great height and descending with great purpose. But I nodded anyway, because his voice had the particular weight of someone who had said true things for 80 years and had long since stopped worrying about whether anyone believed him right away. We sat there in silence for a while, the fog thinning slowly as the moon climbed higher. He told me about his wife, who used to sit on this very dock and throw bread to the gulls just to watch him grow annoyed about it. He told me about his grandson, who had moved far away for work and called home most weeks, though not always. He told me the water near the third wooden post ran colder than the rest because of an old drainage pipe underneath, and that the fish liked gathering there in the quiet hours before dawn. Most of fishing, he said, was simply knowing your water, knowing where the cold ran beneath the warm, being still enough to notice. I thought about the palace then, about how nobody there had ever taught me to notice anything except danger. It was somewhere near midnight when the line finally pulled tight in my hands, sharp and sudden, nearly dragging me off the edge of the dock. Edwin caught the back of my coat with one steady hand, calm as still water, as if he had rescued 100 overeager children before me. He talked me through it in that same unhurried voice. Not too fast. Let it tire. Let it believe, just for a moment, that it was winning. When the fish finally broke the surface, small and silver and furious, I made a sound that was nothing like a princess, and everything like a girl who had just done something entirely her own. Edwin laughed so hard he nearly fell off his crate. He asked if I planned to eat it or let it go. I looked at that small, angry, living thing in my hands and thought about every ceremony I had ever sat through, where I was not permitted to decide anything for myself. I told him to let it go. It had worked hard too, I said. He did not argue. He simply helped me guide it back into the cold water by the third post, and we watched the ripples spread and vanish. That peace did not last long. A horn sounded from somewhere near the eastern gate, low and grim, the kind used only when the guards believed real danger was close. Edwin's calm face changed in an instant. He pulled me down behind the crates just as 3 warhawks swept low over the harbor, their wings beating hard enough to scatter loose nets across the dock. I realized then that it was not only the guards searching for me. Something colder moved beneath the surface of the harbor water, a shape too large and too deliberate to be any fish. Edwin's grip tightened on my shoulder. He whispered that smugglers sometimes used the old drainage tunnels beneath the docks to move dangerous cargo, and that whatever had just stirred the water was not something either of us wanted to meet. The shape surfaced for half a second between 2 boats, scales dark and slick, eyes catching the moonlight before vanishing again. My own instincts, buried under years of court manners, rose up sharp and certain. I felt heat gather low in my throat for the first time in my life, an ember of something I had never been allowed to use. Edwin did not run. He grabbed an old boat hook, planted his feet, and told me in a steady voice to stay behind him. I could have listened. I probably should have. Instead, I stepped forward, because I finally understood, in that single moment, why the throne feared what I might become, and why I refused to be only what they had planned. The creature lunged toward the dock, and I let go of everything I had been holding back. The ember in my throat became a breath of light and heat, not enough to harm the town, but more than enough to make the water hiss and the creature flinch back into the dark. Edwin struck the moment it recoiled, driving it away from the dock with a strength that surprised me in a man his age. Within moments, the disturbed water calmed, and the shape did not return. Captain Callum arrived minutes later with a dozen guards, torches raised, ready for battle. He found only an old fisherman calmly coiling rope, and a young girl catching her breath beside him, faint smoke curling from her lips. Nobody dared question either of us for a long moment. Edwin stood between me and the guards without hesitation, one hand steady on my shoulder, and told them plainly that I was safe, that I had done nothing wrong, and that they could all stand to slow down for once in their lives. Nobody argues easily with a man who has clearly outlived several wars and one bad hip. I returned to the palace that night under guard, as expected, but something inside me had changed in ways no ceremony ever managed. My tutors believe, to this day, that my weekly visits to the harbor are simply lessons in local ecology. They are not entirely wrong. Edwin has taught me since that patience is not a virtue dragons lack. It is one nobody ever bothered teaching us, because everyone around us was always too afraid, or too hurried, to try. I still have not caught a second fish since that night. He says that is fine. He says even water needs time to learn to trust you. I believe him. He has not been wrong about anything yet.